The morning sun beat down on Red River, New Mexico, as Adelaide Armstrong stepped out of the mercantile with her basket laden with flour, sugar, and coffee beans, not knowing that the tall cowboy leaning against the hitching post had been waiting for this exact moment since dawn broke over the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. It was Saturday, July 14th, 1883, and Austin Jensen had positioned himself strategically where he could see the door without appearing obvious. His hat pulled low enough to shield his eyes, but not so low that he could not watch for her. Adelaide adjusted the weight of the basket against her hip, her calico dress swishing around her ankles as she navigated the wooden boardwalk. The supplies were heavy this week, her father having given her an extensive list before his rheumatism flared up again. At 21 years old, she had taken over most of the household duties, while her father recovered from the ailments that plagued aging miners who had spent too many years underground. Austin pushed off from the post with practiced ease, his boots hitting the dusty street as he crossed toward her. His heart hammered in his chest the way it did every Saturday, that peculiar mixture of anticipation and nervousness that no wild bronc or ornery steer had ever produced in him. At 23, he had worked cattle drives from Texas to Montana, faced down rustlers and rattlesnakes, but nothing made his palms sweat quite like approaching Adelaide Armstrong. "Morning, Miss Armstrong," he said, touching the brim of his hat. "That basket looks mighty heavy. I would be honored if you would allow me to carry it home for you." Adelaide looked up at him, her brown eyes catching the sunlight. A smile played at the corners of her mouth, not quite surprised but pleased nonetheless. "Mr. Jensen, this is becoming quite the habit." "Yes, madam." "I reckon it is." He reached for the basket handle, his fingers brushing hers for the briefest moment. The contact sent electricity through his arm, though he kept his expression neutral and respectful. She released the basket to him, and they began walking down the main street of Red River together. The town was small but bustling, having grown around the mining operations that brought men seeking fortune from all corners of the country. False-fronted buildings lined both sides of the wide dirt road, and the sound of a piano drifted from the Lucky Silver Saloon even at this early hour. "Your father doing better?" Austin asked, adjusting the basket to his left arm so he could walk on her street side, a habit his mother had drilled into him before consumption took her when he was 15. "Some days are better than others," Adelaide replied. "The doctor says the mountain air is good for him, better than it was down in the mines. But years of breathing in that dust takes its toll." Austin nodded, understanding the unspoken worry in her voice. He had seen plenty of miners in his time in Red River, watched strong men reduced to shells of themselves, coughing their way toward early graves. "He is lucky to have a daughter who looks after him so well." "He is all I have left," she said quietly. "My mother passed when I was 12. It has been just the two of us since then." They walked in companionable silence for a moment, the rhythm of their footsteps synchronized. Austin had memorized the route to the Armstrong house, a modest cabin on the eastern edge of town where the land began its gradual rise toward the mountains. It was a 20-minute walk, 20 precious minutes that he looked forward to all week long. "You work at the Double R Ranch, do not you?" Adelaide asked, breaking the silence. "Yes, madam. Been there going on 2 years now. Good outfit, fair boss. We run about 3,000 head of cattle up in the high country during summer, bring them down before the first snow." "That sounds like hard work." "Honest work," Austin corrected gently. "I have done worse. Spent some time as a hired gun down in Texas before I realized that was no kind of life. A man can lose his soul living like that, always looking over his shoulder, never knowing if the next sunrise might be his last." Adelaide glanced at him with new interest. "You were a gunfighter," Not proud of it, he admitted. But I was young and angry after my mother died and my father took off for the California goldfields. Never saw him again. I fell in with some rough company, did things I regret, but I walked away from all that. Came north looking for clean work and a fresh start. We all have things in our past we wish we could change, Adelaide said softly. The important thing is who we choose to be today. Her words struck something deep inside him, a validation he had not known he needed. They continued walking, and Austin found himself telling her things he had never shared with anyone else in Red River. About the cold nights on the trail, the beauty of watching a thunderstorm roll across the plains, the satisfaction of honest labor that left his muscles aching but his conscience clear. Adelaide listened with genuine interest, asking thoughtful questions that showed she understood the life he described. In turn, she told him about her own past, about growing up in a mining camp in Colorado before her father decided to try his luck in New Mexico, about learning to cook and sew and keep house after her mother died, about the loneliness of being one of the few unmarried women in a town full of rough miners and cowboys. I suppose that is why you have gentlemen waiting to carry your basket every Saturday, Austin said, a hint of concern creeping into his voice despite his best efforts to sound casual. Adelaide laughed, a genuine sound that made his heart skip. Mr. Jensen, you are the only gentleman who has ever offered, and you have been doing it for, 3 months now? 14 weeks, Austin said, then immediately felt his face heat. Not that I have been counting. She stopped walking and turned to face him fully, her expression thoughtful. Why do you do it, Austin? And please call me Adelaide. I think after 14 weeks of Saturdays, we can dispense with the formalities. He met her gaze, those brown eyes that had haunted his dreams since the first time he saw her struggling with an overfilled basket outside the mercantile. Because from the moment I first saw you, Adelaide, I have not been able to get you out of my mind. Because every Saturday morning I wake up thinking about these 20 minutes. Because in 2 years of living in Red River, you are the first person who has made me think about putting down roots instead of just drifting. Adelaide's breath caught, her cheeks flushing pink. That is quite possibly the most honest thing anyone has ever said to me. I am not a man of fancy words, Austin said, but I am a man of my word, and I am telling you true, Adelaide Armstrong. I would very much like to court you proper if you would allow it. She studied his face for a long moment, and Austin felt as though she could see straight through to his soul. Finally, she smiled. I would like that very much, though I suspect my father will want to meet you properly. I would expect nothing less, Austin replied, relief flooding through him. I will come by tomorrow afternoon if that suits. Sunday dinner, Adelaide decided. Come at 2 o'clock. And Austin, do not be nervous. My father is gruff, but his bark is worse than his bite. They resumed walking, but something fundamental had shifted between them. Austin felt it in the air, in the way Adelaide's shoulder occasionally brushed his arm, in the warmth of her smile when she glanced up at him. By the time they reached the Armstrong cabin, a neat structure with a small vegetable garden out front and chickens pecking in a fenced yard, he felt as though he were walking on air. Adelaide's father, Thomas Armstrong, appeared in the doorway as they approached. He was a lean man with gray hair and deep-set eyes that had seen hard years underground. His gaze moved from his daughter to Austin and back again, missing nothing. Papa, this is Austin Jensen, Adelaide said. He works at the Double R Ranch. He has been kind enough to help me carry the supplies home. Every Saturday for 14 weeks, Thomas said, his voice gravelly but not unkind. I have noticed. Austin set the basket down on the porch and extended his hand. Mr. Armstrong. I have asked your daughter if I might court her, and she has agreed, pending your approval. I would like to come for Sunday dinner tomorrow if you will have me." Thomas shook his hand, his grip still strong despite his ailments. A man who asks permission, that is getting rare these days. "You got a pass, Jensen." "Yes, sir. Nothing I am proud of, but nothing I am running from either. I have been honest with your daughter about who I was and who I am now." "And who are you now?" "A cowboy trying to make an honest living and build a decent life." "A man who thinks your daughter is the finest woman in New Mexico and would count himself blessed to spend time in her company." Thomas studied him for a long moment, then nodded. 2 o'clock tomorrow. Do not be late. I will be here at 1:15, sir." As Austin walked back toward town, his step was lighter than it had been in years. He spent the rest of Saturday in a daze, going through the motions at the ranch but his mind miles away. His bunkmate, Charlie Ross, noticed immediately. "You got that look," Charlie observed that evening as they sat outside the bunkhouse. "Either you found gold or you finally talked to that girl you have been mooning over." "Adelaide agreed to let me court her," Austin said, unable to keep the grin off his face. "I am having Sunday dinner with her and her father tomorrow." "Well, I will be damned. Good for you, Austin. She seems like a fine woman, though I got to say, I have never seen a man so dedicated to his Saturday routine. Rain or shine, you have been there every week waiting for her." "Some things are worth waiting for," Austin replied. Sunday morning found Austin up before dawn, bathing in the creek behind the bunkhouse despite the cold water, shaving carefully, and putting on his best shirt and trousers. He brushed his hat until it gleamed and polished his boots until he could see his reflection. By 1:30, he was pacing outside the bunkhouse, too nervous to sit still. "You are going to wear a hole in the ground," Charlie called from where he lounged in the shade. "Get going before you drive yourself crazy." Austin arrived at the Armstrong cabin at precisely 1:45, as promised. Adelaide answered his knock, and the sight of her in a blue dress with her dark hair pinned up took his breath away. "You look beautiful," he said. "You look terrified," she replied with a warm smile. "Come in. Papa is just finishing setting the table." The interior of the cabin was small but immaculate. A table dominated the main room, covered with a checked cloth and set for 3. The smell of roasted chicken and fresh bread filled the air, making Austin's mouth water. Thomas emerged from the kitchen carrying a platter, his expression neutral but not hostile. Dinner was a careful dance of conversation. Thomas asked pointed questions about Austin's work, his plans, his views on everything from cattle ranching to politics. Austin answered honestly, never embellishing but never hiding the truth either. He noticed Adelaide watching him throughout the meal, her eyes soft with an emotion he dared not name yet. "My daughter tells me you used to be a hired gun," Thomas said over coffee. "Yes, sir. For about 2 years after my mother died. I was 17, angry and lost. I did work I am not proud of, though I never killed anyone who was not trying to kill me first. When I turned 19, I realized I was heading down a road with only one destination, so I walked away." "That takes strength," Thomas said. "Easier to keep going than to change course." "It was the hardest thing I ever did," Austin admitted, "but it was also the best decision I ever made." Thomas nodded slowly, then turned to his daughter. "Adelaide, why do not you show Austin the garden? I need to rest my legs." Outside, Adelaide led Austin past the chicken coop to where she had planted tomatoes, squash, and beans in neat rows. "He likes you," she said. "He would not have left us alone together if he did not." "I like him too," Austin replied. "He is protective of you as he should be." Adelaide turned to face him, her back to the garden, the afternoon sun catching in her hair. "Austin Jensen, I need you to understand something. I have had men express interest before, but they always wanted someone to cook and clean and keep house. None of them ever asked what I wanted, what I dreamed about. In 14 Saturdays, you have asked me more about myself than any man has in my entire life. What do you dream about, Adelaide? Austin asked softly, stepping closer. I dream about having a home, a real home, not just a cabin but a place where I belong. I dream about having a family, children laughing in the yard. I dream about having a partner, someone who sees me as an equal, not just a housekeeper or a cook. I dream about love, Austin. Real love, the kind that lasts. I dream about that too, he said. And when I dream about it now, you are always there. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wished. When she did not, he cupped her cheek in his hand, his thumb brushing her skin. May I kiss you, Adelaide? I wish you would, she whispered. The kiss was gentle, tentative, a question and an answer all at once. When they parted, both were breathless, and Adelaide's hand had found its way to his chest, resting over his heart. Every Saturday, Austin murmured against her forehead. I will be there every Saturday, Adelaide, and every other day too if you will have me. I will have you, she replied. I absolutely will have you. The weeks that followed established a new rhythm to Austin's life. He still met Adelaide every Saturday without fail, carrying her basket home from the mercantile. But now, he also came on Sunday afternoons for dinner and Wednesday evenings, when he could get away from the ranch. They took walks along the river, sat on her porch in the cool of the evening, and talked about everything and nothing. Thomas Armstrong's health continued to decline gradually, but he seemed at peace with Adelaide's courtship. You are good for her, he told Austin one evening when Adelaide had gone inside to fetch more coffee. She smiles more now, has not seen her this happy since her mother was alive. I intend to ask her to marry me, Austin said. With your permission, sir. You have it, Thomas replied. But make it soon. I would like to see my daughter wed before this old body gives out entirely. I do not have much to offer her yet, Austin admitted. I have been saving my wages, but it will be another 6 months before I have enough for a proper ring and a down payment on some land. My daughter does not need much to be happy, Thomas said. What she needs is a good man who loves her. The rest will come in time. On a Saturday in late October, as the aspens turned gold in the mountains and the air took on a crisp edge that promised winter, Austin waited for Adelaide outside the mercantile, as usual. He had ridden into town earlier than normal, stopping at the jeweler's shop where he had been making payments on a simple gold band with a small diamond. It was not much, but it was honest money honestly earned, and he hoped it would be enough. Adelaide emerged with her basket, her cheeks pink from the warmth of the store contrasting with the cool air outside. She smiled when she saw him, that particular smile that was just for him, and his heart swelled with love so profound it almost hurt. Good morning, Austin, she said, handing him the basket. Good morning, Adelaide. I was wondering if we might take the long way home today, through the meadow by the river. It is getting cold, she pointed out, though her eyes sparkled with curiosity. I will keep you warm, he promised. They walked through town and took the path that led down to the Red River, following it upstream to where a meadow spread out beneath the mountains. The grass had turned tawny with the season, and the cottonwoods along the riverbank blazed yellow against the brilliant blue sky. Austin set the basket down and took both of Adelaide's hands in his. I have been waiting for the right moment to say this, he began, his voice thick with emotion. But I have realized that any moment with you is the right moment. Adelaide Armstrong, I love you. I love your kindness and your strength. I love how you care for your father without complaint. I love how you listen when I talk about my day, like what I say actually matters. I love the way you laugh and the way you think and the way you make me want to be a better man." Tears welled in Adelaide's eyes as Austin released one of her hands to reach into his pocket. He pulled out the small box and opened it, revealing the ring inside. "I do not have much to offer you yet. No house, just a bunkhouse bed and a dream of something more. But I promise you this. I will spend every day of the rest of my life working to make you happy. I will never miss a Saturday. I will never stop carrying your basket. I will never stop loving you. Adelaide Armstrong, will you marry me?" "Yes," she breathed, the tears spilling over now. "Yes, Austin, yes." He slid the ring onto her finger with shaking hands, then pulled her into his arms and kissed her with all the love and passion he had been holding back for months. When they finally broke apart, both were crying and laughing at the same time. "I love you," Adelaide said. "I have loved you since the third Saturday, when you told me about the thunderstorm on the plains and your eyes got that faraway look. I have loved you through every conversation, every walk, every moment we have spent together." They walked back to the cabin hand in hand, the basket forgotten on Austin's other arm. Thomas took one look at their faces and knew immediately what had transpired. "Well, it is about time," he said gruffly, but his eyes were suspiciously bright. "When is the wedding?" "As soon as possible," Austin said, looking at Adelaide for confirmation. 3 weeks, Adelaide decided. "That will give me time to make a dress and arrange everything with Reverend Morrison." 3 weeks, Austin agreed, though privately he thought it sounded like an eternity. Those 3 weeks passed in a blur of activity. Austin worked extra hours at the ranch to save every penny possible. Adelaide sewed her wedding dress with help from the few other women in Red River. Thomas seemed to rally, determined to walk his daughter down the aisle even if it was the last thing he did. The wedding took place on a bright Saturday morning in mid-November. The small church was packed with cowboys from the Double R Ranch, miners from the surrounding claims, townspeople who had known Adelaide all her life, and a few curious souls who had heard about the cowboy, who had spent months carrying a girl's basket home every Saturday. Adelaide walked down the aisle on her father's arm, wearing a simple white dress she had made herself, and Austin thought she had never looked more beautiful. His hands trembled as he took hers, and his voice cracked when he said his vows, but the love in his words was unmistakable. "I promise to love you every day," he said, "to carry your burdens when they are too heavy for you alone, to stand by your side through whatever comes, to never miss a Saturday or a Sunday or any day in between. From this day forward, you are my home." Adelaide's vows were equally heartfelt. "I promise to love you with my whole heart, to believe in your dreams and help you achieve them, to build a life with you based on trust and respect and genuine partnership. You have shown me what it means to be truly loved, Austin Jensen, and I will spend the rest of my life showing you the same." When Reverend Morrison pronounced them husband and wife, Austin kissed Adelaide to the cheers and applause of everyone present. The reception was held at the church hall, with food donated by various townspeople and music provided by a fiddler from one of the mining camps. Austin danced with his wife until his feet ached, and still he did not want the day to end. They spent their wedding night in the cabin, Thomas having temporarily moved to stay with a friend from his mining days. In the quiet intimacy of their first night as husband and wife, Austin and Adelaide discovered new depths to their love, physical passion joining with emotional connection, to create something profound and sacred. The next morning, Austin woke to find Adelaide already up, making coffee in the kitchen. He came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist, kissing the top of her head. "Good morning, Mrs. Jensen," he murmured. "Good morning, Mr. Jensen," she replied, leaning back against him. "Did you sleep well?" best sleep of my life, though I hope to make a habit of not sleeping too much." She turned in his arms and swatted his chest playfully. "We have the rest of our lives, Austin. No need to rush, I know, but I have waited so long for this for you. Sometimes I still cannot believe you said yes." "I said yes the moment you asked about the thunderstorm on the plains," Adelaide admitted. "I just did not know it yet." They settled into married life with surprising ease. Austin continued working at the Double R Ranch, but now he rode home to Adelaide every evening instead of sleeping in the bunkhouse. Thomas moved back in with them, and the three lived together in comfortable harmony. Adelaide took on additional work doing laundry and mending for some of the bachelor cowboys, bringing in extra money that she and Austin saved religiously. Every Saturday, without fail, Austin accompanied Adelaide to the mercantile and carried her basket home. It became such a fixture of Red River life that people set their watches by it. If Austin Jensen was waiting outside the mercantile, it must be Saturday morning. Winter came hard that year, with snow piling high in the mountains and temperatures dropping below zero at night. The cattle had been brought down from the high country, and Austin's work shifted to feeding and maintaining the herd through the brutal cold. He came home each evening exhausted, but Adelaide always had hot food and a warm fire waiting. On Christmas Eve, as they sat by the fire with Thomas dozing in his chair, Adelaide took Austin's hand and placed it on her stomach. "I have something to tell you," she said softly. Austin looked at her questioningly, then understanding dawned in his eyes. "Adelaide, are you saying—" "We are going to have a baby," she confirmed. "I have suspected for a few weeks, but I wanted to be sure before I told you." Austin pulled her into his arms, overcome with emotion. "A baby! We are going to have a baby. Are you happy?" Adelaide asked, though she could see the answer in his face. "Happy does not begin to cover it," Austin said. "Overjoyed, terrified, grateful. Adelaide, you have given me everything I never knew I wanted. A home, a family, a purpose beyond just surviving day to day." Thomas woke up at the commotion and learned he was going to be a grandfather. Despite his failing health, his face lit up with joy. "A grandchild," he said wonderingly. "I am going to be a grandfather." The pregnancy progressed through the winter and into spring. As Adelaide's belly grew, Austin became increasingly protective, insisting on doing all the heavy lifting and worrying constantly about her well-being. She tolerated his hovering with good humor, knowing it came from a place of love. On a warm Saturday in early May, Adelaide insisted on making the trip to the mercantile despite being 8 months pregnant. Austin was beside himself with worry, but she was determined. "I have been going to the mercantile every Saturday for years," she said firmly. "I am not about to stop now just because I am with child. Besides, I need the exercise." "At least let me help you," Austin pleaded. "You always help me, my love. That is what you do." They made their way slowly through town, Adelaide moving with the careful waddle of late pregnancy. When they reached the mercantile, she insisted on going in alone while Austin waited outside as always. When she emerged, basket in hand, he was there immediately to take it from her. "Still carrying my basket," she said with a tender smile. "Until the day I die," Austin replied. "Though I hope you will let me do the shopping once the baby comes." "We will do it together," Adelaide decided. "All three of us." Thomas's health took a turn for the worse in late May. The doctor was frank. His lungs were giving out and there was nothing more to be done. He had weeks at most, possibly days. Austin sat with his father-in-law through the long nights, reading to him from the Bible and talking about everything and nothing. One night, when Adelaide had finally been convinced to rest, Thomas grasped Austin's hand with surprising strength. "Promise me something," Thomas rasped. "Anything, sir." Promise me you will always take care of her and the baby. Promise me they will never want for anything." "I promise," Austin said, his voice breaking. "I swear it on my life, Thomas. They will always be provided for, always be loved." "You are a good man, Austin Jensen. I thank God Adelaide found you, or rather that you found her and were stubborn enough to keep showing up every Saturday until she noticed." "She noticed the first Saturday," Austin said. "She told me so later. She just wanted to see if I would keep coming back." Thomas laughed, which turned into a coughing fit. When he recovered, he said, "That is my daughter, smart as a whip. She got that from her mother." "I wish I could have met her," Austin said. "She would have liked you, probably would have pushed Adelaide into accepting you even sooner." Thomas closed his eyes, his breathing labored. "Tell her I love her. Tell her I am proud of the woman she has become. Tell her I am sorry I could not hold on long enough to meet my grandchild." "You tell her yourself," Austin insisted. "You are not going anywhere yet." But Thomas Armstrong passed away 3 days later, in the early hours of a Tuesday morning, with Adelaide holding one hand and Austin the other. He went peacefully, a slight smile on his face, his last words a whispered, "Tell the baby about me." The funeral was well attended, Thomas having been respected in the community despite his relatively short time in Red River. Adelaide bore up under her grief with remarkable strength, though Austin often heard her crying quietly at night. He held her through those tears, providing what comfort he could while dealing with his own sadness at losing the man who had become like a father to him. 2 weeks after Thomas's death, on a Saturday morning that dawned clear and warm, Adelaide woke Austin before sunrise. "It is time," she said simply. Austin flew into action, helping her dress, gathering the supplies they had prepared and rushing to fetch the midwife, Mrs. Callahan, who lived 3 houses down. The labor was long and difficult, lasting through Saturday and into Sunday morning. Austin paced the floor outside the bedroom, praying harder than he ever had in his life. Finally, just as the sun broke over the mountains, he heard the sound he had been waiting for, a baby's cry. Mrs. Callahan opened the door, her face tired but smiling. "You have a son, Mr. Jensen. A healthy, loud son, and your wife is doing just fine." Austin rushed into the room to find Adelaide exhausted but radiant, holding a small bundle wrapped in blankets. She looked up at him with tears streaming down her face. "Austin, meet Thomas Andrew Jensen," she said. "Thomas for my father, Andrew for yours." Austin took his son in his arms, marveling at the tiny, perfect features, the shock of dark hair, the small fists waving in the air. "He is beautiful," Austin whispered. "He is absolutely perfect." "He looks like you," Adelaide said. "He has your nose," Austin countered. They both laughed, giddy with exhaustion and joy and relief. Austin handed the baby back to Adelaide and sat on the edge of the bed, wrapping his arms around both of them. "I love you," he said. "I love you both so much." "We love you too," Adelaide replied. The early days of parenthood were chaotic and exhausting. Young Thomas proved to have a strong set of lungs and opinions about when he should be fed, which was apparently all the time. But Austin and Adelaide navigated it together, taking turns walking the floor at night, marveling at every small milestone. On the first Saturday after Thomas was born, Adelaide insisted they resume their routine. Austin was dubious, but she was determined. "I want our son to grow up knowing about Saturdays," she said. "About traditions and consistency and showing up for the people you love." So they bundled Thomas up and made their way to the mercantile, moving slowly to accommodate Adelaide's recovery. Austin waited outside as always, though now he held his son while Adelaide shopped. When she emerged, he shifted Thomas to one arm and took the basket with the other. "This is getting complicated," he observed with a laugh. "This is what life is," Adelaide replied. "Beautiful and complicated and exactly what we both wanted." As they walked home, other townspeople stopped to admire the baby and congratulate them. Austin felt a profound sense of belonging, of being part of something larger than himself. This was what he had been searching for all those years, he realized. Not just a place, but a purpose. Not just survival, but a life worth living. The months passed, and Thomas grew from a tiny infant into a chubby, happy baby who smiled at everyone and seemed particularly enchanted by his father's deep voice. Austin continued working at the Double R Ranch, but he had been saving diligently, and now he had a goal in mind: land of his own. He discussed it with Adelaide one evening after they had put Thomas to bed. "I have been talking to some of the other hands about parcels for sale around here. There is a nice section about 5 miles north, good grazing land with a creek running through it. It is not huge, but it is a start. We could run a small herd, build our own place." "How much?" Adelaide asked practically. Austin named the figure and she thought for a moment. "We are close," she said. "Another 6 months of saving and we will have enough for the down payment." "You are sure?" "It would mean leaving this cabin, leaving your father's house." "This cabin holds memories, good ones," Adelaide said, "but our life is moving forward, not backward. My father would want us to build something of our own. And Austin, I want our children to grow up on land their father owns, not land he just works." "Children," Austin raised an eyebrow. "Plural," Adelaide blushed. "I would like more if you would. I hated being an only child. I want Thomas to have brothers and sisters." "I want that too," Austin said, pulling her into his arms. "I want everything with you, Adelaide. Everything and anything you desire." True to their plan, 6 months later Austin made an offer on the land. The owner accepted, and suddenly the Jensens were landowners. It was a modest spread, only 320 acres, but it was theirs. Austin immediately began plans for a house, working with some of the carpenters in town to design something that would suit their growing family. Construction began in the spring of 1885, with Austin doing much of the work himself alongside hired help. It was slow going, as he still had to maintain his job at the Double R Ranch to bring in steady money, but gradually the house took shape. It was a simple 2-story structure, nothing fancy, but it had 3 bedrooms upstairs and a large kitchen and living area downstairs. Adelaide was pregnant again by the time they moved in that summer, and she immediately set about making the house a home. She sewed curtains, planted a garden, and arranged their modest furniture with care. On their first night in the new house, after Thomas was asleep in his new room, Austin and Adelaide stood on the front porch looking out at their land. "We did it," Adelaide said softly. "We actually did it." "You doubted we would?" Austin asked. "No, but sometimes I have to remind myself this is real, that this life we have built is actually ours and not just a dream." Austin wrapped his arms around her from behind, his hands resting on her growing belly. "It is real. And it is only going to get better." Their daughter, Anna Marie Jensen, was born in December of 1885. A small but fierce baby with Adelaide's dark eyes and a temperament that suggested she would be a force to be reckoned with. Thomas, now a toddler, was fascinated by his baby sister, constantly wanting to help care for her. The years that followed established a rhythm to the Jensen family life. Austin built up his herd gradually, starting with just 20 head of cattle and slowly expanding. Adelaide managed the household and garden, sold eggs and butter to townspeople, and raised their growing family. By 1888, they had added another son, Aaron Michael, to their brood. Through it all, Austin never missed a Saturday. Even as their family grew and the trips became more chaotic with children in tow, Every Saturday morning found the Jensen family at the mercantile. Austin always carried Adelaide's basket, though now he often had a child on his shoulders or holding his hand as well. "Why do we always come on Saturday?" young Thomas asked one morning when he was about 6 years old. Austin knelt down to his son's level. "Because Saturday is when I first met your mother. Saturday is when I first carried her basket home and realized I wanted to spend the rest of my life doing things for her. Saturday is special." "Every Saturday?" Thomas asked. "Every Saturday," Austin confirmed. "I have never missed one, and I do not intend to start now." "Even when it was snowing?" Anna piped up. She was 4 now and full of questions. "Even when it was snowing," Adelaide confirmed. "Even when it was raining. Even when I told him he did not have to come. Your father is nothing if not consistent." "It is not just about carrying the basket," Austin explained to his children. "It is about showing up. It is about doing what you say you will do. It is about proving through your actions, not just your words, that you love someone." As the children grew older, they came to cherish the Saturday tradition as much as their parents did. It became a time for family, for being together in town, for stopping at the bakery for treats, and for hearing the story, again and again, of how Papa had waited outside the mercantile for Mama every single Saturday until she agreed to let him court her. The ranch continued to grow and prosper. Austin proved to have a knack for ranching, and his herd expanded to several hundred head. He hired a few hands to help with the work, taking seriously his role as employer and treating his men with the same respect he had appreciated from the owner of the Double R Ranch years earlier. Adelaide remained his partner in every sense of the word. She kept the books for the ranch, her neat handwriting recording every sale and expenditure. She negotiated with buyers, often getting better prices than Austin could because of her sharp mind and refusal to be intimidated. Together, they built something substantial, something lasting. In 1891, Adelaide gave birth to their 4th and final child, another daughter named Alice Rose. At 30, Adelaide declared herself done with childbearing, and Austin, watching her go through another difficult labor, readily agreed. 4 healthy children were more blessings than he had ever dreamed of having. The turn of the century found the Jensen family well established in Red River. Thomas, now 14, was already helping seriously with the ranch work and showing signs of being even better with cattle than his father. Anna, at 12, had her mother's practical nature and her father's stubbornness, a combination that promised interesting things for her future. Aaron, at 9, was the dreamer of the family, always with his nose in a book when he was not doing his chores. And little Alice, at 6, was the joy of everyone's life, with a sunny disposition that could brighten the darkest day. Austin was 37 now, his face weathered by years of sun and wind, his hands calloused from hard work. But he had never been happier or more content. Every morning he woke up beside Adelaide, still beautiful to him after nearly 15 years of marriage. Every evening he sat at a table surrounded by his children, listening to them talk about their days. Every Saturday, without fail, he carried Adelaide's basket home from the mercantile. "Do you ever regret it?" Adelaide asked him one evening as they sat on their porch watching the sun set over the mountains. The children were all in bed, and they had these rare moments of quiet together. "Regret what?" Austin asked, taking her hand in his, settling down. "Giving up the freedom of the trail. Being tied to one place, one person, one life." Austin looked at her in genuine surprise. "Adelaide Jensen, I have never regretted a single moment of my life with you. Before I met you, I was not free, I was lost. You gave me purpose. You gave me a home. You gave me a reason to be the best man I could be." Even though I come with a lot of children and responsibilities and not a moment of peace, she teased. Especially because of that, Austin said firmly. Adelaide, do you remember what I told you the day I proposed? That any moment with you is the right moment. That is still true. Every moment of every day I am exactly where I want to be with exactly who I want to be with. Adelaide leaned her head on his shoulder. I love you, Austin Jensen. I loved you when you were a shy cowboy waiting outside the mercantile. I loved you when you asked my father for permission to court me. I loved you when you promised never to miss a Saturday. And I love you now, with gray in your hair and wrinkles around your eyes and hands that are rougher than they used to be. My hair is not gray, Austin protested. There are definitely some gray hairs, Adelaide insisted, laughing, but they just make you more distinguished. On a Saturday in the spring of 1902, something unprecedented happened. Austin woke up feeling terrible, his body aching and his head pounding. Adelaide took one look at him and insisted he stay in bed. You are sick, she said firmly. You need to rest. But it is Saturday, Austin protested weakly. I need to go to town with you. Austin, you have a fever. You are not going anywhere. I have never missed a Saturday, he said, trying to sit up and failing. Not in 19 years. And you are not going to start missing them because you were too stubborn to rest when you were ill, Adelaide said. I will go to town with the children. You stay here and sleep. But Austin could not sleep. He lay in bed fretting, feeling as though he had somehow failed. When Adelaide returned a few hours later, she found him sitting up in bed, looking miserable. I missed Saturday, he said. Adelaide set the basket down and came to sit beside him. Austin, you did not miss Saturday. You were here in our home, fighting off an illness because you work too hard and do not take care of yourself the way you should. That is not missing anything. That is being human. But I promised, Austin said. I promised I would carry your basket every Saturday. And you have, Adelaide said softly. For 19 years, through rain and snow and heat and cold, you have been there. Missing one Saturday because you are ill does not break that promise, Austin. It just proves that you are not invincible, which I already knew. I wanted to be, he admitted. For you, I wanted to be invincible. I do not need you to be invincible, Adelaide said, taking his hand. I need you to be here, alive and healthy and with me for as many years as we can have. If that means occasionally staying in bed when you are sick, then that is what you will do. Austin recovered within a few days, and the following Saturday he was back at his post outside the mercantile, waiting for Adelaide. She emerged with her basket, smiled at him, and handed it over. Did you miss me last week? She asked as they started walking. Every moment, Austin replied. It felt wrong not being there. It felt wrong not having you there, Adelaide admitted. The children kept looking around for you, even Thomas, who thinks he is too grown up for such things now. They walked in comfortable silence for a moment, then Austin said, I have been thinking. The children are getting older. Thomas will probably want to take over the ranch eventually. Anna is talking about maybe becoming a teacher. Aaron wants to go to university and become a lawyer. Alice is still young, but she is bright as a button. They are all going to go out and make their own lives. That is what children do, Adelaide said. They grow up and leave, though I suspect at least one will stay close. Thomas loves the ranch too much to go far. What I am trying to say is that soon it will just be us again, just you and me the way it started. And Adelaide, I want you to know that I am looking forward to that. Not because I do not love our children, but because I love you. You are not just the mother of my children or the woman who keeps my house. You are my partner, my best friend, the love of my life. And I am grateful for every Saturday, every day, every moment I get to spend with you. Adelaide stopped walking, tears streaming down her face. How do you always know exactly what to say to make me cry? Years of practice, Austin suggested, pulling her into his arms. The years continued to pass, bringing change and growth to the Jensen family. Thomas took over more and more of the ranch operations, proving to be a capable and innovative rancher. At 21, he married a girl from a neighboring ranch, and the following year made Austin and Adelaide grandparents for the first time. Anna did become a teacher, taking a position at the Red River Schoolhouse and becoming beloved by her students. She remained unmarried, declaring that she was too busy shaping young minds to worry about finding a husband, though Austin suspected there was a young man from Santa Fe who wrote to her regularly. Aaron went off to university in Albuquerque, studying law as he had always dreamed. He came home for holidays and Saturdays when he could, and his letters home were full of his studies and his excitement about his future. Alice, the baby of the family, grew into a spirited young woman with her mother's practical nature and her father's romantic heart. At 16, she was already turning heads in Red River, though Austin tried not to think too much about that. Through all of these changes, one thing remained constant. Saturday mornings found Austin waiting outside the mercantile for Adelaide. His hair was more gray than brown now, and his body moved with the careful deliberation of a man in his 50s. But his commitment never wavered. People in Red River talked about it. The old cowboy who had been carrying his wife's basket home for more than 30 years. New residents were told the story by old-timers. Children grew up knowing about Mr. and Mrs. Jensen and their Saturday tradition. It became part of the town's identity, a symbol of constancy and devotion in a world that was changing rapidly. One Saturday in the spring of 1908, as Austin and Adelaide walked home from the mercantile, she said, "Do you realize it has been 25 years?" 25 years since what? Austin asked, though he suspected he knew. 25 years since you first waited outside the mercantile to carry my basket home. A quarter of a century, Austin. Best quarter century of my life, Austin said. Though I feel I should point out that I waited outside the mercantile for 3 months before you finally agreed to let me court you. So really, it has been more like 25 years and 3 months. You are never going to let me forget that, are you? Adelaide asked with a laugh. Never, Austin confirmed. Those 3 months were agony. I need to remind you occasionally what I went through. Poor baby, Adelaide teased. You had to wait a whole 3 months. However did you survive? By reminding myself every Saturday that you were worth waiting for, Austin said seriously. And you were, Adelaide. You were worth all of it. As they approached their house, now surrounded by well-established trees and gardens, with a barn and outbuildings added over the years, Austin felt a profound sense of gratitude. This life they had built together, this family they had raised, this love they had nurtured, it was everything he had never dared to hope for during his angry, lost youth. "What are you thinking about?" Adelaide asked, noticing his expression. "About how lucky I am," Austin said. "About how one decision to wait outside a mercantile on a Saturday morning changed my entire life. About how grateful I am that you gave me a chance." "I am the lucky one," Adelaide countered. "You taught me what it means to be truly loved, Austin. You showed me through your actions day after day, year after year, that love is not just a feeling. It is a choice, a commitment, a promise kept." They stood together on their porch, looking out at the land they had built their life on, and Austin put his arm around his wife. "Same time next Saturday?" he asked, as he did every week. "Same time next Saturday," Adelaide confirmed, as she always did, and so it continued Saturday after Saturday, year after year. Through good times and hard times, through triumphs and tragedies, through the ordinary moments that make up a life. Austin Jensen waited outside the mercantile every Saturday, and Adelaide Armstrong Jensen emerged with her basket, and together they walked home. Their children grew and had children of their own. Thomas ran the ranch with skill and brought his own children to witness the Saturday tradition. Anna eventually did marry her correspondent from Santa Fe and moved away, but she came back to visit often. Aaron became a successful lawyer in Albuquerque, but always made time to visit his parents. Alice married a doctor and settled in Red River, giving Austin and Adelaide the joy of having at least one child close by. The world around them changed dramatically. The Wild West of their youth became more civilized, with automobiles beginning to appear on the streets of Red River and electricity slowly making its way to rural areas. But some things remained constant, anchors in a changing world. On a bright Saturday morning in October 1920, Austin Jensen, now 60 years old, stood outside the mercantile waiting for his wife as he had done for 37 years. His body was stiffer than it used to be, his hair completely white, his face deeply lined. But his eyes were still sharp, and his heart still full of love for the woman who would emerge from that door any moment now. Adelaide appeared, now 58 herself, her hair silver and her face showing the beautiful patina of a life well lived. She smiled when she saw him, that same smile that had captured his heart all those decades ago. "Good morning, Mr. Jensen," she said, handing him the basket. "Good morning, Mrs. Jensen," he replied, taking it with practiced ease. "Shall we?" They began the familiar walk home, moving more slowly than they once had but no less purposefully. Around them, Red River continued its Saturday morning bustle, but they existed in their own world, connected by history and love and the simple act of walking home together. "Do you ever think about all those Saturdays?" Adelaide asked as they walked. "All those times you waited for me." "Sometimes," Austin admitted. "I add them up in my head. 37 years, 52 Saturdays a year, minus the few I missed when I was sick or away on cattle business. Over 1,900 Saturdays, Adelaide. Over 1,900 times I have had the privilege of carrying your basket home." "That is a lot of Saturdays," Adelaide observed. "Not nearly enough," Austin said. "I intend to keep doing this until I physically cannot anymore. And even then, I will probably try to convince you to let me sit in a wheelchair outside the mercantile just to keep the tradition going." Adelaide laughed, then grew serious. "Austin, when my time comes, or when yours does, I want you to know that these Saturdays, this simple thing you have done for me week after week, year after year, it means more to me than any grand gesture ever could. You have shown me with every basket carried, with every Saturday kept, that love is in the showing up. It is in the consistency. It is in choosing again and again to be there for the person you love. I will always show up for you," Austin said, his voice thick with emotion. "In this life and whatever comes after. You are my heart, Adelaide, you always have been." They reached their house, now surrounded by the evidence of the life they had built. Children's toys left by visiting grandchildren, a barn full of memories, gardens that had fed their family for decades. As Austin set the basket down on the porch, Adelaide took his hand. 37 years, she said softly, "and I love you more today than I did on that first Saturday." "Impossible," Austin replied, "because I loved you completely from the very beginning. I have just had 37 years to show you how much." They went inside together, hand in hand, ready to face whatever the future held with the same partnership and love that had sustained them through nearly 4 decades. And on the following Saturday, as surely as the sun would rise, Austin Jensen would be waiting outside the mercantile, ready to carry his wife's basket home once more. In the years that followed, the tradition continued unbroken save for inevitable illnesses and the occasional necessary trip. Their grandchildren grew up hearing the story of Grandpa Austin and how he had waited every Saturday for Grandma Adelaide. It became family legend, passed down through generations, a testament to what real love looked like. Austin and Adelaide Jensen lived well into their 70s, blessed with good health and the deep satisfaction of a life well lived. They watched their great-grandchildren be born, saw Red River transform from a rough mining town into a proper community, and never stopped loving each other with the same fervor that had brought them together on that first Saturday so many years before. When Austin finally passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 76, Adelaide found a letter he had written to her years earlier, to be opened after his death. In it, he detailed every moment of that first Saturday when he had seen her struggling with her basket and decided to do something about it. He described the nervousness, the hope, the absolute certainty that she was the one for him. And he ended it with these words: "Thank you for giving me a reason to show up every Saturday. Thank you for building a life with me. Thank you for loving me back. I will be waiting for you wherever we go next, ready to carry your basket home one more time." Adelaide kept that letter close to her heart for the remaining 3 years of her life. She continued to go to the mercantile on Saturdays, though now her grandson carried the basket home for her, honoring his grandfather's tradition. And when she passed away peacefully surrounded by her children and grandchildren, they buried her beside Austin, their headstones simple but inscribed with words that captured their extraordinary ordinary love. Every Saturday he waited. Every Saturday she came. Together they built forever. The tradition lived on in their descendants, each generation finding their own ways to honor the commitment and consistency that Austin and Adelaide had modeled. The Jensen Ranch continued to thrive under Thomas's leadership, and then his children's. Anna's students grew up and had children who learned from their teacher about devotion and dedication. Aaron's law practice became legendary, built on the same principles of integrity his father had shown. Alice's children became doctors and teachers and ranchers, all carrying forward the values they had learned from their grandparents.